Stepbrother from the Same Planet was a little slow to begin with, but once the episode got going, it actually was pretty good. This is the 8th episode of the 34th season of The Simpsons. This is directed by Matthew Faughnan, and the main narrative I'll get to in a moment. But the supporting narrative is Lisa and Bart throwing the ultimate slumber party. Mostly it's Lisa wanting to throw it because she's fed up with people not inviting her to slumber parties, to think that she's a party pooper. So they plan this ultimate slumber party. I wish we'd seen a bit more of it because I thought those scenes were really fun. But at the same time, I do feel like it was fairly weighted with the main narrative, as I think the main narrative did need to take the main focus. And Abe Simpson is in a relationship, and he becomes stepfather to his new partner's son, Calvin. Calvin is voiced by the wonderful Melissa McCarthy, and Homer and Calvin have a very classic step-sibling rivalry, and I rather enjoyed it once it got going, but to begin with I wasn't really sure where they were going, and it took a really interesting, very moving and thought-provoking direction. I'll go into a bit of spoiler detail in a moment, but spoiler-free for now. They had the chance to see things from each other's perspective, and I'll explain with a spoiler in a moment what happened with that, but I thought it was a really good decision, and something that was very thought-provoking and very, very well done and very well handled. Funny when it needed to be, but also quite emotional as well, and I think they did a really great job with that part of the narrative. Yeah, I loved the bit with Lisa and the slumber party, and it was fun, and I wish we got to see more of it. But at the same time, I don't think there's anything with Calvin and Homer's story that didn't need to be there. Yes, it was a bit slow to begin with, but everything served a purpose. So, all things considered, the pacing is absolutely fine, the narrative's fine, and it's definitely very thought-provoking. In all, once it got going, Stepbrother from the Same Planet is pretty good. So spoilers, I'll discuss the 2 points that I thought were particularly moving. So these are spoilers, quite big spoilers from now. And I guess 3 points. The first time, of course, was when Homer was on his knees with the crown on his head and Abe says some really nice things to him. And it takes a couple of seconds for us to realise that he thinks Homer is Calvin because he's got his eye drops in and he can't see properly, and he says these really nice things to Calvin, not realising it's Homer. And then, quite cleverly, Homer dresses Calvin up as him so that Calvin can see how Abe treats Homer, and he's quite nasty to Homer. Nasty to Calvin, thinking it's Homer. And I love that. I love that they were allowed to experience what it's like to be the other person. It's not very often one would get that opportunity, and I thought it was done very well. The third point is when Homer revealed his attempt at taxidermy, and he had the 2 shells with the googly eyes, and it's meant to represent his need for his father's approval, and I thought it worked quite well. The only thing that I didn't like, or what that I didn't think made a lot of sense, is that Abe is constantly nasty to Homer, but he's nice to Calvin, and Abe gave the excuse that when Homer was young, Abe felt like he'd lost his youth. But now Calvin's young, it's a chance for him to relive that youth. And that makes sense, but that doesn't explain why he's still constantly nasty to Homer. Is he saying he holds it against Homer for existing? That's not very nice if that's what he's implying. He's still nasty to Homer today, because once upon a time Homer was a child who needed his father. I love Grandpa Simpson. I'd like to think that that's not what he's implying, but that's certainly my reading of it. But either way, with that aside, Stepbrother from the Same Planet is a pretty decent episode. Took a little bit of time to get going, but once it did, I actually quite enjoyed it.